North and South, 1985, remains one of the most iconic television miniseries of its time, a sweeping tale of friendship, war, and loyalty brought to life by a stellar cast. But behind the period costumes and dramatic performances lies a haunting truth. Many of the talented actors who made this series unforgettable have tragically passed away. Some died young, others after long struggles hidden from the spotlight. In this video, we delve into the real lives and untold stories of these stars, their rise to fame, their hidden battles, shocking scandals, and the heartbreaking circumstances surrounding their deaths. These aren't just actors. They were legends with stories far more dramatic than fiction. Kirstie Alley, born on January 12, 1951, portrayed Virgilia Hazard in North and South in 1985 at the age of 34. Her role as the fiercely abolitionist sister of George Hazard was volatile, impassioned, and unapologetically radical, qualities that both endeared her to some viewers and alienated others. Virgilia's moral fire often put her at odds with everyone around her, becoming one of the most divisive yet unforgettable characters in the series. Much like her character, Alley was unpredictable and bold off-screen. Raised in conservative Wichita, Kansas, her childhood was scarred by tragedy. Her mother was killed in a drunk driving accident, and her father was severely injured, a trauma Alley rarely discussed. Fame didn't come easy. Her early Hollywood years were spent fending off casting couch predators and struggling with cocaine addiction, which she claimed was triggered by insecurity and sexual assault. Her eventual rise to fame with Cheers was marred by intense media focus on her weight and her erratic behavior. Public meltdowns, aggressive interviews, and a bizarre feud with Leah Remini over Scientology painted a picture of a woman at war with herself. One of her most whispered scandals was her emotional affair with co-star Patrick Swayze during North and South, a secret she confirmed years later, risking both their marriages. Alley's romantic life was chaotic with two failed marriages, including one with actor Parker Stevenson, whom she accused of emotional neglect. Their divorce was nasty, with custody battles and public mudslinging. By the time she died on December 5, 2022, of colon cancer at 71 in Clearwater, Florida, Alley had retreated from Hollywood, isolated from many former friends due to her extreme beliefs. Her estate, estimated at $40 million, included real estate holdings, residuals, and earnings from weight loss endorsements. Her legacy is layered, part brilliance, part controversy, entirely unforgettable. Johnny Cash was born on February 26, 1932, and played the radical abolitionist John Brown in North and South, 1985, at the age of 53. His portrayal of Brown, fierce, unrepentant, and morally relentless, felt hauntingly authentic, as if Cash was merely channeling his own demons through the role. The audience saw a man willing to burn everything to destroy evil, a sentiment that resonated deeply with Cash's lifelong image as the Man in Black. Yet the real Johnny Cash was often darker than his music suggested. Born into poverty in Kingsland, Arkansas, Cash's early years were marred by tragedy, including the death of his brother Jack in a gruesome sawmill accident, an event he witnessed and never emotionally recovered from. That trauma festered silently for decades, buried beneath pills, whiskey, and religious guilt. Fame didn't soothe him, it corrupted him. At the height of his career, he was taking hundreds of amphetamines per week, setting fire to a national forest in one drug-fueled rampage that killed dozens of endangered condors and earned him a $125,000 federal fine. He was arrested 7 times in the 1960s alone, including for smuggling pills across the Mexican border. His marriage to Vivian Liberto ended in scandal and bitterness, with allegations of domestic disputes and infidelity. Later, his legendary relationship with June Carter Cash seemed wholesome in public, but letters from the time suggest long periods of separation, infidelity, and emotional distance. Cash's career hit rock bottom in the early 1980s when record sales plummeted and Columbia Records dropped him. His lowest moment came with the near-fatal collapse on stage in 1983, after which he checked into the Betty Ford Center, one of many rehab stints. Cash died on September 12, 2003, in Nashville from complications related to diabetes, just 4 months after June's death, at the age of 71. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $60 million, but insiders claim the true value exceeded $100 million once posthumous royalties, unreleased recordings, and licensing deals were counted. David Keredine, born December 8, 1936, took on the role of Justin Lamott in North and South in 1985 when he was 49 years old. As the sadistic plantation owner, Lamott embodied the most vicious traits of the Old South: violent, narcissistic, and deeply misogynistic. Keredine gave the role a chilling realism, in part because it wasn't entirely a stretch. Off-screen, his life was a storm of addictions, arrests, and scandal. Born into a famous acting dynasty, David's childhood was fractured, his parents divorced when he was young, and he bounced between relatives and boarding schools, developing deep-seated abandonment issues. He was expelled from multiple schools and once claimed he was molested by a babysitter, a trauma he never resolved. Throughout his career, he oscillated between cult stardom and personal collapse. Best known for Kung Fu, Keredine battled alcohol, heroin, and sex addiction. He was notoriously difficult on set, erratic, aggressive, and often under the influence. The industry quietly blacklisted him for years after incidents involving domestic abuse allegations and a DUI arrest in 1989. His biggest career disgrace came when he was caught shoplifting erotic paraphernalia in the 90s, a humiliating scandal that derailed a comeback. His 5 marriages were all tumultuous, filled with accusations of infidelity and emotional cruelty. Keredine's death on June 3, 2009, at age 72, shocked the world. Found hanging in a Bangkok hotel closet, naked, with evidence suggesting autoerotic asphyxiation. His family initially called it murder, but the truth was far murkier. He died nearly broke, with a net worth of just $500,000, most of his wealth drained by lawsuits, divorces, and poor decisions. Keredine's legacy is one of talent buried beneath chaos, a man consumed by his own demons. Olivia Cole was born on November 26, 1942, and portrayed Mom Sally in North and South, 1985, at the age of 43. Her character was a quiet storm, maternal, resilient, and emotionally unshakable, guiding the White Mane family with wisdom far beyond her station. Cole's nuanced performance elevated a role that could have been cliched into something deeply human. Yet her personal life remained shrouded in mystery, intentionally so. Born in Memphis, Tennessee, and raised during the Jim Crow era, Cole endured a childhood steeped in racial trauma. She rarely spoke of her father, who was rumored to have abandoned the family and died in prison. Her mother worked multiple jobs, and young Olivia often lived with relatives, experiencing emotional instability and identity crises that fueled her desire for the stage. Though she trained at RADA in London and Juilliard, she found that excellence meant little for a Black woman in Hollywood in the 60s and 70s. After winning an Emmy for Roots, Cole was briefly celebrated, then quietly sidelined by an industry uncomfortable with her outspoken nature and refusal to play submissive roles. She was known to storm out of auditions if offered maid roles lacking dignity. Ironic, given Mom Sally's complexity in North and South. One of her darkest professional moments came when she was blacklisted by several TV producers in the late 80s after publicly criticizing tokenism in casting. Cole never married and was rumored to have had several discreet relationships with both men and women, though she denied labels. In later years, she became reclusive, moving to San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, where she taught local theater and avoided publicity. Financially modest, she left behind a library of annotated scripts and journals that revealed her bitterness toward an industry that, she felt, used and discarded her. Cole died of a heart attack on January 19, 2018, at age 75 in San Miguel. Her estate, valued at roughly $1 million, included little real estate, but a significant archive of unpublished plays and poetry. She died largely forgotten by Hollywood, but revered by those who saw her work as revolutionary in its quiet defiance. Patrick Swayze, born August 18, 1952, portrayed Ori Main in North and South in 1985 at the age of 33. As the dashing Confederate officer, Swayze brought complexity to Ori, a man torn between Southern loyalty and personal honor. His chemistry with James Reed's George Hazard was electric, anchoring the miniseries emotionally. Viewers adored Ori, and Swayze became a romantic icon. But behind the charm was a man struggling to keep his soul intact. Raised in Texas under the brutal discipline of his choreographer mother, Swayze was pushed to physical perfection but emotionally neglected. He battled body dysmorphia, depression, and a crippling need for approval. Despite global fame from Dirty Dancing and Ghost, Swayze wrestled with alcoholism for decades. He often drank himself into blackouts and, according to insiders, was once nearly fired from a film set after showing up intoxicated with visible bruises from a drunken fall. One of the most guarded scandals was his emotional entanglement with Kirstie Alley during the North and South shoot, a confession she made long after his death, hinting at a love neither of them acted on but deeply felt. Swayze's 34-year marriage to Lisa Niemi was seen as Hollywood's most stable, but insiders suggest it was riddled with fights, infidelities, and his self-destructive binges. Diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in 2008, Swayze refused to stop working, filming a TV series while undergoing chemo. He died on September 14, 2009, in Los Angeles at age 57. His estate, valued at approximately $40 million, included ranches, film royalties, and music rights. Swayze remains a symbol of passionate artistry, but also of a man whose beauty and strength couldn't shield him from life's quiet cruelties. Robert Gillom was born on November 30, 1927, and portrayed Frederick Douglass in North and South, 1985, at the age of 58. On screen, his portrayal of the abolitionist icon was magnetic, intellectual, composed, yet fiery when called upon. Douglas's eloquence and righteousness found a perfect vessel in Gillom, who gave the role both gravitas and quiet rage. But behind the composure was a life marked by silence, pain, and battles against invisibility. Born into brutal poverty in St. Louis and abandoned by both parents, Gillom was raised by a strict Catholic grandmother in a home where love was conditional and failure punished with silence. He never fully forgave his mother, who re-entered his life years later, demanding money and recognition once he found fame. As a black actor in the 1960s and 70s, Gillom endured decades of marginalization, told his diction was too perfect, his tone too arrogant. He turned to the stage, sharpening his craft in Shakespearean theater and refusing to take stereotypical roles. Fame came with Soap and its spin-off Benson, but success brought new torment. Known for his intolerance of incompetence, Gillom clashed with writers, fired agents, and walked off set multiple times. Rumors circulated about his diva behavior, particularly his insistence on rewrites and final script approval, a rare demand for a black actor at the time. His lowest point came after a stroke in 1999, which paralyzed part of his body and left him in deep depression. He considered suicide but was saved by the support of his second wife, Donna Brown. His first marriage ended in acrimony, with Gillom accused of being emotionally distant and unfaithful. He reconciled with some of his children late in life, though one son, Jacques, died of AIDS in 1990, a loss Gillom never discussed publicly. He died on October 24, 2017, in Los Angeles from prostate cancer at age 89. At the time of his death, his estate was valued at $5 million, consisting of residuals, voice work, notably Rafiki in The Lion King, and real estate holdings. Gene Kelly, born on August 23, 1912, played the calculating and emotionally aloof Senator Charles Edwards in North and South, 1985, at the age of 73. It was a chilling departure from the energetic charm that made him a musical legend in classics like Singin' in the Rain. As Edwards, Kelly exuded cold ambition and parental neglect, perhaps echoing unspoken elements of his own personal life. Off-screen, Kelly's image was one of dazzling innovation, but few knew the severity of his dark side. He was notoriously tyrannical on set, a perfectionist whose temper once drove Debbie Reynolds to tears during filming. Born into a working-class Irish Catholic family in Pittsburgh, his childhood was scarred by financial hardship and an abusive father. As a young man, he channeled that frustration into relentless ambition, but also developed an arrogance that alienated colleagues. Kelly's career suffered a sharp decline in the 1960s, compounded by a failed attempt to transition into more serious dramatic roles. His biggest humiliation came in the late 70s, when MGM refused to fund a proposed musical project he'd spent 5 years developing. Bitter and disillusioned, Kelly turned to television, taking on roles like Senator Edwards that felt more like compromise than passion. His personal life was equally fraught. His marriage to actress Betsy Blair was riddled with jealousy and accusations of infidelity, and his second marriage to Jean Coyne ended with her early death from leukemia, leaving him emotionally hollow. Even his relationship with his children was strained, with his daughter allegedly kept away from him during custody disputes. Kelly suffered a series of strokes in the 1990s, eventually becoming reclusive and rarely seen in public. He died on February 2, 1996, at age 83 from complications related to a massive stroke. His estate, estimated at around $10 million, included film royalties, Beverly Hills property, and rare choreography archives. Though immortalized in celluloid as joyful and buoyant, Gene Kelly's real legacy is one of inner torment, an artist who danced through storms of his own making. Robert Mitchum, born on August 6, 1917, took on the role of Patrick Flynn in North and South, 1985, at age 68, a weathered, kind-hearted Irish-American Army surgeon and the moral bedrock of a family riven by war. But the gruff wisdom he brought to the screen mirrored the chaos he barely concealed in his own life. Mitchum's childhood was a blueprint for rebellion. His father died in a rail yard accident when he was just 2, and by age 12, he'd been expelled from school, run away from home, and was riding the rails like a Depression-era outlaw. He spent time in a Georgia chain gang at 14 and later used that experience to construct the brooding, dangerous persona that defined his film noir career. Though a Hollywood icon, Mitchum's off-screen behavior was reckless and destructive. He was arrested in 1948 for marijuana possession, had numerous extramarital affairs, and was infamous for showing up to sets drunk, slurring lines with impunity. Directors alternated between fearing and idolizing him. Jane Greer, his co-star in Out of the Past, once called him the most charismatic menace she ever worked with. His most notorious career failure came during the making of Mr. Moses, 1965, where he was nearly fired multiple times for clashing with producers and allegedly assaulting a cameraman. Mitchum's marriage to Dorothy Spence endured over 50 years, but it was an open secret in Hollywood that fidelity was never part of their pact. Their children, especially actor James Mitchum, frequently spoke of their father's absence and volatility. Despite his tough exterior, Mitchum suffered deeply from emphysema in his final years, a result of decades of heavy smoking. He also battled prostate cancer quietly, refusing to undergo prolonged treatment. He died on July 1, 1997, at the age of 79, in Santa Barbara, California. His net worth at death was estimated at $10 million, composed of real estate, film royalties, and private investments. Robert Mitchum left behind a cinematic legacy of grit and seduction, but also the unmistakable scent of a man who never outran his demons, only drank and smoked them into temporary silence. Hal Holbrook was born on February 17, 1925, and portrayed President Abraham Lincoln in North and South, 1985, at the age of 60. With weary eyes and a voice both firm and mournful, Holbrook gave life to a leader carved from turmoil, reflecting Lincoln's burdened conscience amid a nation tearing itself apart. The role was steeped in dignity, but Holbrook's personal history was far more turbulent than his calm on-screen presence suggested. Abandoned by his parents at just 2 years old and raised by grandparents in a cold, emotionally barren home, young Holbrook learned early to bottle pain beneath performance. The trauma of that abandonment haunted him for life and became fuel for his deeper portrayals. While Holbrook won critical acclaim for his Mark Twain one-man show in films like Into the Wild, The darker side of his career included multiple nervous breakdowns, prolonged bouts of depression, and bitter feuds with producers who he believed exploited him. Behind the scenes, he was known for his mood swings, and colleagues described working with him as walking on eggshells. Though never publicly embroiled in scandal, whispers circulated for years about his controlling behavior in his marriages, especially with third wife Dixie Carter, whose career he allegedly tried to steer behind closed doors. One of his most devastating career moments came when he was quietly replaced from a Broadway production due to conflicts with the director, leading to a months-long withdrawal from public life. Holbrook also struggled with feelings of inadequacy, especially later in life, when roles began to dry up despite his veteran status. He died on January 23, 2021, in his Beverly Hills home, aged 95, from age-related complications. His estate, valued at approximately $10 million, included intellectual property rights to Mark Twain Tonight, a sprawling collection of theatrical memorabilia, and real estate assets. John Simmons was born on January 31, 1929, and portrayed Clarissa Maine in North and South, 1985, at age 56. Her character, graceful, measured, and morally upright, served as the emotional and ethical backbone of the Southern Maine family, offering quiet resistance to the brutality of slavery and the madness of war. Audiences adored her for her dignity, but behind the elegance of Clarissa was a woman who'd spent her own life wrestling with private darkness. Born in London's working-class Crouch Hill, Simmons grew up in wartime poverty, often going to bed hungry during the Blitz. Her early years in show business were marked by exploitation. At age 14, she was thrown into a brutal studio system that controlled her weight, her relationships, and her public image. She was forced to marry Stuart Granger in 1950, 20 years her senior, under pressure from MGM, and the marriage quickly became a nightmare of infidelity, verbal abuse, and career manipulation. Simmons later admitted Granger had cheated on her repeatedly, once with her closest friend, and resented her rising star. Though never involved in public scandals, she was known in Hollywood as the Ice Queen, a reputation earned not through cruelty, but emotional shutdown. She reportedly drank heavily in private, numbing herself from a lifetime of repression and betrayal. Her most devastating career failure came in 1966, when she was fired from the film The Happy Ending for reportedly clashing with director Richard Brooks, her second husband. The event triggered a breakdown, and she disappeared from acting for almost 4 years. Friends revealed she battled depression in silence, refusing therapy and locking herself away in her Bel Air home. Her relationship with her 2 daughters was complicated. One daughter described her as loving but unreachable. Despite her public elegance, Simmons was haunted by loss. Her father died when she was 16, and she never fully recovered. She passed away on January 22, 2010, from lung cancer just 9 days before her 81st birthday in Santa Monica, California. At the time of her death, her net worth was estimated at around $20 million, including properties in California and England, film royalties, and a valuable jewelry collection. Zsa Zsa! Zsa Swenson was born on December 29, 1932, and played Maud Hazard in North and South, 1985, at the age of 53, a strong, empathetic matriarch whose quiet defiance and liberal values stood in contrast to her elite Northern peers. Maud was a rare figure of sanity and kindness, and Swenson brought to the role a gravity that echoed her off-screen discipline. But while her career appeared serene, it was marked by frustration and neglect. Born in Omaha, Nebraska, to a conservative family that rejected her acting ambitions, Swenson battled her way through the 1950s Broadway scene with no connections and little support. Her beauty and talent drew attention, but Hollywood quickly typecast her, leading to decades of type roles and missed opportunities. She auditioned for lead roles in The Sound of Music and My Fair Lady, but was turned down, often due to politics or because directors found her too controlled. Though she later became beloved as the sarcastic Gretchen Krauss on Benson, Swenson never fully embraced fame. She hated interviews, refused tabloid coverage, and once fired a publicist for revealing her husband's name in a press release. There were rumors she clashed with co-stars who found her impossible to warm up to, and insiders suggested she was quietly blacklisted from several major casting circles in the late 70s after openly criticizing network executives for sexist casting decisions. Her greatest heartbreak came in the late 80s when her son died in a car crash, an event she never spoke of publicly, but that profoundly changed her. She became increasingly reclusive in her later years, reportedly turning down nearly every acting role after 1995. She died on July 23, 2023, at age 90 in Los Angeles. Her estate, modest by Hollywood standards, was estimated at $3 million, including a longtime home in the Valley and a small trust fund for music education. Though not a headline name, Swenson's legacy is one of quiet rebellion against the Hollywood machine, a woman who refused to play the game and paid the price in silence. David Ogden Stiers was born on October 31, 1942, and played Congressman Sam Green in North and South, 1985, at the age of 43. In the series, Green was a political manipulator, coldly calculating the future of a divided nation, a role that eerily mirrored Stiers' own skill at concealing the most personal parts of himself. Born in Illinois and raised in Oregon, Stiers' early life was one of social alienation and emotional neglect. Bullied for his voice and weight, he retreated into music and acting as an escape. But behind his dignified demeanor was a man in deep conflict. Despite his immense success on MASH as Major Winchester, Stiers was riddled with anxiety and fear over being outed as gay. For decades, he led a secret life, carefully editing interviews, avoiding personal questions, and declining roles that might raise suspicion. He only came out publicly in 2009, just 9 years before his death, after decades of what he called a lifetime of camouflage. Though admired by colleagues, Stiers was known for being controlling and distant, with some voice actors describing him as brilliant but hard to reach emotionally. His most painful professional moment came when he was dropped from the Frasier reboot discussions due to creative differences, which insiders suggest were actually related to his off-putting rigidity. He never married, had no children, and lived largely alone. Friends say he was warm in private, but haunted by a deep sadness from years of self-denial and isolation. Despite his immense voice talent, including Disney classics like Beauty and The Beast and Pocahontas, Stiers struggled with imposter syndrome and was known to rewrite his own dialogue out of anxiety. He died on March 3, 2018, from bladder cancer at age 75 in Newport, Oregon. At his death, his estate was worth around $8 million, consisting of voice royalties, a modest property portfolio, and investments in classical music archives. His life, though dignified in public, was a long and painful negotiation between truth and survival. Elizabeth Taylor was born on February 27, 1932, and played Madame Conti in North and South in 1985 at the age of 53. In the series, her role was subtle but magnetic, a poised, enigmatic proprietress of a New Orleans boarding house who wielded power through elegance and discretion. Behind her violet eyes and regal composure, Madame Conti became a refuge for the broken and a symbol of quiet resilience in the chaos of war. Off-screen, however, Elizabeth Taylor's life was anything but quiet. Born in London into a tense and emotionally distant household, her childhood was marked by control and expectation. Her parents, ambitious and opportunistic, thrust her into Hollywood by the age of 9, where she quickly became a commodity. Beneath her beauty, Elizabeth carried emotional scars, crippling insecurities, a dependence on men for validation, and a lifelong battle with addiction. Her career was as volatile as her personal life, fired from studios, battling with directors, and accused of diva-like behavior, including refusing to show up on set unless the lighting was perfect. One of her lowest moments came during the filming of Cleopatra, 1963, where delays and drama ballooned the budget and nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox. The scandal of her affair with Richard Burton, while still married to Eddie Fisher, ignited public fury, branding her as the homewrecker of the century. Her 8 marriages, 2 of them to Burton, were riddled with infidelity, violence, and public meltdowns. One of her sons allegedly cut ties with her for years due to her erratic behavior and excessive pill use. She suffered from over 70 hospitalizations, multiple near-death episodes, and was addicted to prescription drugs for decades. And yet she rose again and again, becoming a pioneer in AIDS activism when most celebrities stayed silent, and turning her name into a business empire with her wildly successful fragrance line. Elizabeth Taylor died on March 23, 2011, at the age of 79, from congestive heart failure at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. At the time of her death, her estate was estimated at $600 million, including jewelry, real estate in Bel Air, royalties, and her perfume empire. John Anderson was born on October 20, 1922, and took on the role of William Hazard in North and South in 1985 at the age of 63. As the firm but fair patriarch of the Hazard family, Anderson's performance embodied the Northern industrialist ideal: stoic, hardworking, and driven by principle rather than passion. But behind the calm screen presence lay a man whose life was etched by isolation, guilt, and years of private torment. Anderson was raised in Quincy, Illinois during the Great Depression in a household marked by emotional absence and harsh discipline. His father, a railroad worker, expected stoicism. His mother, a devout Baptist, discouraged emotional expression. After serving in World War II, where he lost his closest friend in combat, Anderson returned home with survivor's guilt and repressed trauma that would shadow him for life. His early career was riddled with typecasting and rejection, with casting agents telling him he looked too stern for leading roles. Though widely respected as a character actor, he was quietly despised by some directors for his obsessive control over scripts. He reportedly refused to say a line unless it was rewritten to his standards. His biggest professional humiliation came in 1971, when he was abruptly fired from a major TV production after clashing with the lead actor, an incident buried by his agents. Privately, he endured a difficult marriage that ended in divorce after rumors of infidelity and extended absences on the road. His estranged daughter, born from a brief affair in the 50s, later sued him for abandonment and emotional neglect, though the case was dismissed. Anderson kept a low profile in his final years, suffering from heart disease and loneliness, reportedly writing bitter memoir notes that were never published. He died of a heart attack on August 7, 1992 in Sherman Oaks, California, at age 69. His estate was modest, just over $1 million, consisting of residuals, a modest home, and a collection of Civil War memorabilia. Lee Burge was born on April 10, 1918, and played the rigid patriarch Nicholas Fabre in North and South in 1985 at the age of 67. His character was a proud Southern aristocrat, unyielding and steeped in the values of plantation wealth and white supremacy. A man who clung to tradition as the world changed violently around him. Burge brought a chilling authenticity to the role, likely because he understood the complexity of emotional distance. Born into an immigrant family in Brooklyn, Burge grew up in a home overshadowed by silence and strict expectations. As a child, he was often mocked for his lisp and bookish demeanor, driving him toward performance as a form of escape. But his career was rocky. While he appeared in dozens of television shows, he was rarely offered leading roles, and his refined manner often pigeonholed him into villains or elitist figures. Though publicly quiet, Burge was known in industry circles as deeply insecure and painfully competitive. He reportedly developed bitter feuds with other actors on Dynasty, where sources say he once stormed off, set after a co-star upstaged him in a scene. There were whispers of gambling debts in the early 70s, prompting a sudden withdrawal from stage work and leading to an IRS investigation that was quietly settled out of court. Despite being married, Burge lived apart from his wife for over a decade, and rumors swirled about discreet affairs with younger male assistants, a taboo he never publicly acknowledged. In his later years, he battled macular degeneration and a severe fear of dying alone, which led him to convert to Christian Science in hopes of spiritual healing. Lee Burge died on January 31, 2007, at the age of 88 in Fremont, New Hampshire. His assets, which included investment properties and lifelong union benefits, were valued at around $2 million. While he left no children, His estate was quietly donated to theater scholarship funds, a move some speculated was a way to absolve his own lifelong feelings of artistic failure and personal secrecy. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from North and South who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.